First, an illegal migrant from Sudan was found to have brutally murdered 27-year-old mother Rhiannon White in Walsall.
Save our kids! Save our kids! Save our kids!
Was it only last week where that migrant got released accidentally from prison? Apparently it was never going to happen again. Well, this week it has. Not once, but twice as we speak. There are manhunts underway. So go and check your sheds at the time that I go to a commercial break, ladies and gents, because they could be out.
Britain woke to blood. A young mother, Rhiannon White, stabbed more than 20 times outside the Bell, the migrant hotel where she worked. Her killer, a man who should never have been here. 3 days later, another predator walked free, released by mistake from HMP Chelmsford. His name was already known in Epping, the man who assaulted a 14-year-old girl. As night fell, a few thousand gathered outside the Bell Hotel. By dawn, it had swelled into more than 100,000 across Essex. Bottles, flares, and fury filled the streets as parents screamed one line through the smoke, "Protect our kids." A local activist shouted into the camera, "Anger is off the charts." But in Westminster, Prime Minister Karma called it an isolated incident. He was wrong because this wasn't politics anymore. It was payback against a government that no longer protects its own people. This is Brit Alert News, and this is how Britain snapped inside Westminster. Chaos replaced debate.
Chaos replaced debate.
Can he reassure the House that since Kabatu was released, no other asylum-seeking offender has been accidentally let out of prison?
What we inherited was a complicated system that they set up, letting people out on the sly. That's part of the problem, and we're trying to fix it.
Questions echoed. How could this happen? But no one dared to answer. Britain's leadership had run out of words. 200 miles away, the silence was louder outside the Bell Hotel. The quiet protest of a town that had lost faith.
The screams of pain from this beautiful little boy will haunt me for the rest of my life. Rhiannon's life was not the only one taken that day. Majek stole a crucial piece from all of us.
Epping had entered its own kind of mourning, not for one victim, but for the country itself. By afternoon, the First Minister appeared on camera. The Deputy Prime Minister himself, as I'm appalled and livid on behalf of the public that Kabatu is at large. He called it outrage. Epping called it betrayal. And for the first time, a town realised the truth. Its leaders weren't losing control. They'd already lost it. As daylight faded, Epping stopped grieving. Candles turned to torches. Silence turned to thunder. A few thousand people flooded the narrow streets outside the Bell Hotel. Faces lit by firelight and fury. They came with flags, flares, and a single message for Westminster. Enough. Windows trembled. Police radios hissed. Someone held a bottle. Then the crowd surged. Smoke rolled across the street like fog from a war zone. Riot shields clashed. The air stank of tear gas and anger. Within hours it spread beyond Epping. From Chelmsford to Colchester, from Brentwood to Baston, the entire county was awake. What began with thousands had become a tidal wave. An uprising that no line of police could contain. Roads blocked, hotels barricaded, sirens drowned by chants that shook Essex from coast to coast. The Home Office called it a series of isolated disturbances. But Essex called it what it was, rebellion. That night, the chants carried further than the sirens. And for the first time in years, Britain's silence was broken. By morning, the smoke had cleared, but the fear hadn't. Essex woke to sirens and shattered glass. Its streets still slick from the night before. News and Corps spoke in hushed tones, reading from scripts sent hours earlier by the Home Office. Words like riot and chaos were replaced with local unrest and miscommunication. At Westminster, the crisis briefings began. The cabinet meeting riot of tension. No one dared to breathe too loud. David Lammy faced the camera's first calm voice, shaking hands. Public safety remains our top priority, he said. But outside, safety was already gone. Across Essex, 40 arrests overnight, 3 hotels evacuated, social media feeds flooded with images the BBC refused to show. Burning flags, broken shields, crowds chanting, "Whose country?" Hours Downing Street ordered silence. No statements without clearance. No images without approval, but the footage spread faster than any order could stop it. Inside number 10, Keir Starmer signed an emergency directive. Stabilize the narrative, contain the optics. It didn't work because you can't contain fury with phrases. You can't rewrite what the nation just witnessed. And that morning, Britain wasn't calming down. It was waking up. By noon, the headlines changed, but the story hadn't. The word riot vanished from the scrolls. Disturbance took its place. Clips were trimmed. Colors cooled. Captions rewritten. Editors whispered of calls from upstairs. Emails marked urgent. Optics and every sentence softened before it reached the screen. The blackout came softly. No decree, no curfew, just silence that felt official. Newsrooms spoke of responsibility. Platforms spoke of community standards. And every camera turned away at the same time. They thought silence would settle it. It didn't. In Essex, mothers held phones to the night sky, streaming what the networks refused to air. One clip showed a boy waving a torn flag, captioned with 5 words that cracked the lie apart. They're not showing this, are they? Within hours, the tag trended above every minister's name. Within days, Operation Gatekeep had a face. The government itself. Inside the Cabinet Office, the air was ash and caffeine. Starmer's aides whispered about containment while his ministers argued over blame. Half the room wanted restraint. The other half wanted revenge. And through it all, David Lammy read from a page that no one believed anymore. Public order is being restored, he said. But even his voice trembled under the weight of the word order. By nightfall, the police lines were still up, but so were the doubts. Inside their vans, officers stared at the screens on their radios. Each alert another headline they no longer trusted. One sergeant whispered, "We're not peacekeepers anymore. We're placeholders." Another nodded and said, "And no one's coming to replace us." An internal memo leaked online, redacted, time-stamped, and damning. Field morale declining. Chain of command fragmenting. Recommend psychological rotation. Advised selective withdrawal from hotspots. It was meant for ministers. It became a manifesto for dissent. At midnight, a constable stepped out of formation and removed his helmet. He laid it on the ground and crossed his arms. Cameras caught the gesture. No slogans, no speeches, just refusal. By morning, dozens had followed. The chant changed with him from "protect our kids" to "stand with them," too. Then came the reckoning of numbers. Budgets bled faster than faith. Insurance claims outpaced arrests. Local councils declared financial emergencies before they declared moral ones. Every hotel guarded by police became a bill no one wanted to sign. 4 million a month in overtime, 9 million in damages. And yet none of it was the true cost. The real debt was trust. Markets shook. Credit tightened. One newspaper printed it plainly. "We are paying for silence." It sold out before noon. That night, a senior analyst at the Treasury resigned live on air. He said 4 words before security cut the feed. "You cannot budget fear." At Westminster, the response came dressed as doctrine. Briefings were branded as reasserting confidence. Each sentence polished, tested, and hollow. "We remain committed to balanced management of migration and community safety. We condemn all forms of misinformation. We call for calm, but calm cannot be commanded." And when a backbencher from Essex rose to speak, his words didn't sound like politics anymore. He said, "You can't legislate away humiliation." Silence filled the chamber. Someone tried to laugh it off. No one joined him. That night, an editorial leaked handwritten on ministerial stationery. The public do not trust process. They trust presence. It wasn't signed, but the handwriting was Starmer's. The next morning, Westminster looked outward and saw that the country had moved on without it. The marches returned, but this time they weren't angry. They were organised. Coaches from Suffolk, Kent, Birmingham. Veterans walk beside nurses, builders beside teachers, even priests in raincoats carrying nothing but silence. No banners, no chants, just flags folded in half. The symbolism was deliberate. Not surrender, but grief. They filled the bridges and squares without a word. Even the police stepped back, uncertain what to police. It wasn't chaos anymore. It was clarity. In London, camera crews climbed rooftops for a better view. The footage went global before it was censored locally. Foreign anchors called it the Quiet March. Westminster called it a risk to stability. But on the ground, it looked like something else. A country remembering it was still alive. Inside number 10, the curtains stayed drawn. The phones didn't stop, but no one answered. Aides drafted resignations in pencil and tore them up before delivery. The cabinet split between denial and dread. When the Speaker reconvened Parliament, half the benches were empty. The motion wasn't tabled by the opposition. It was signed by Starmer's own MPs. This House no longer recognises the authority of the Prime Minister. It passed by voice vote. No one cheered. They just exhaled. Outside, rain fell over Whitehall. The crowd didn't move. Someone played the national anthem through a tiny speaker. And when the words "Send Her Victorious" came, they were sung as warning, not worship. Starr left through the side door, eyes down. The flashlights painting him in borrowed light. He didn't wave. He didn't speak. History closed the door behind him. Morning came quiet. No speeches, no statements, just streets washed clean by rain and candle wax. Murals appeared overnight. Portraits of mothers, children, police, nurses, the people who had filled the silence when their leaders fled it. The networks came back online, but something in the country had already switched off. The reflex to believe without proof. For once, truth didn't need a studio. It had the streets. In Epping, the Bell Hotel still stood, boarded and empty, flowers wilting along the fence. A note taped to the gate read, "This isn't the end. It's the warning we ignored." And for the first time, Britain listened not to anger, not to orders, but to the sound that always follows collapse. They DT. Because nations don't fall when they're hated. They fall when they stop hearing themselves. This is Brit News. If you still believe truth is not treason, stay awake because the next chapter has already begun.